off, since we only do have 4 right now, we would need to stop the meeting. So I'll keep an eye on that for you.
Okay. So can we go ahead and call the meeting to order? And Claire, would you mind calling the roll?
Certainly. If we could have the next slide. Chair Waddell.
Here.
Vice Chair Jackson will not be joining us. Commissioner Carpenter.
Present.
Commissioner Hanovich.
Present.
Commissioner Schaus. Commissioner Steiner.
Here.
Commissioner White. And then Director Hansen just did drop a note in the chat that our council member liaison, Lori Matthews, is traveling and will join us later. And it does look like Commissioner White just joined us as well. And then we have Economic Vitality Director Heidi Hansen.
Present.
Airport Director Brian Gall.
Present.
Airport Programs Manager Adam Miali is away at a conference. I am Claire Harper, Airport Communications Manager, is present. Tim Skinner, ARF Battalion Chief and Operations Manager.
Present.
And then Missy Sainer, the Administrative Specialist.
Present.
Okay, looks like we can continue. I don't see any public members on. Is there any public comment or participation that I'm not aware of? Okay, any announcements? Okay, and City Council is going to join us later. Is that what I was told?
Yes, she's traveling. Hopefully she's able to join us later.
Okay, we'll wait on that then. Airport operations update.
All right, thanks. Hi, everybody. This is Brian Gall, Airport Director, and thanks for joining us remotely today. We thought with the impending weather, it would be prudent to keep everybody off the streets as much as possible, so appreciate your flexibility on that. We will be hopefully transitioning back to our hybrid meeting with both a in-person and virtual option next month. So for our airport operations update for February, enplanements, as a reminder, are defined as revenue passengers boarding our commercial flights. And February's enplanements were down 6% from 2024. That's a challenging one. I know we were up in January. We did see an uptick in our flight availability in the second half of February from where we were at in the first half. But we have seen a few fewer flights available this February than the past one. Also, just to note, January and February typically are our lowest months. And just judging by the March and April flight schedule, we do expect to see those numbers ticking back up into kind of that general average as we get further on into the year. But so far, February's enplanements were down 6% from 2024. Next slide, please. Now, this is a departure from that. So for total operations, just a reminder for that, each aircraft takeoff or landing is counted as an operation. February's operations were up 29% from 2024, so a significant increase. And actually, if you look at this chart, one of our busiest, on the busier side for any of our months, and our busiest February in a very long time. I think a lot of that had to do with the weather. January and February from an operations standpoint are typically lower because we see some of those inclement weathers in the winter, weather in the wintertime. And this month was considerably better than that, or this past month for flying conditions. We actually had a couple days that exceeded 200 operations per day, which is pretty high for the airport. Typically, we see in the upper 100s as kind of our busier days, but we did have a couple days that exceeded 200. So the tower has been very busy in the past few weeks. Next slide, please. And parking revenue tracks pretty closely with employments. So we did see that slight decrease in employments compared to last year, which is reflected in our parking totals. So we about $3,500 fewer dollars in parking revenue than we had in 2024, which is about a 10% decrease from last year. Again, relatively small sample size. This is only the second February we've had the parking system, but yeah, slight decrease that matches fairly closely with what we saw from employments. Does anybody have any questions about the airport stats from this month? If not, that's all for that update from me, Chair. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, how about FBO updates?
You're not coming through. You must be on mute.
Or well, we can see you, but so far we can't hear you.
How about now? Can you hear me now? No?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Okay, great. All right. If you'd like to jump to the slides I put together for you. You can go to the next one. So just some upcoming events. We have the Coconino High Prom on April 26th. We checked, and since the airport tends to get busy during the McCain-Sedona Forum, I thought I'd put that in there. That's May 2nd through the 4th. Let me go next slide, please. Second year we've participated in the Canyon Cooler Sled Contest. I laugh. I mean, we won actually several races, but we actually got best looking sled. You know, doesn't matter as long as you're really, really good looking. But a lot of the staff attended, you know, on their day off, which was nice. It was a great team building event. And they gave us all that stuff to the right, and I did not take any of it. All the staff took it. I wasn't even here, to be honest. So, yeah, we have that. It's a nice sized trophy, and it's sitting up at the front desk right now. Everybody's pretty proud of it. So the sled's back up on top of the maintenance office, and we'll drag it back down next year, I think. So next slide, please. We hosted a safety seminar in the hangar last Saturday. Brian was there. It was actually well attended. I don't know how many people you'd say were there, Brian, but I'd say it was probably 40 plus pilots maybe from the area. Fred Gibbs, my flight instructor, was the one that put it on. Brian spoke. We had Flagstaff, two guys from the tower here talk. We had somebody come up from the Phoenix TrackCon and talk. And we had two Scottsdale FAA Flight Standards District Office guys speaking up here as well. I thought it was one of our better seminars in a while, to be honest. Covered a lot of things, and obviously with all that's going on, safety is in the forefront, as it always should be. Next slide, please. Just hired a third flight instructor. We're actually out looking for a third trainer, same vintage as the others, so that maintenance and parts and whatnot are the same. We're also actively recruiting right now for CSRs. I just hired a full-time CSR yesterday that'll be working weekends. Getting a little bit away from some of the younger employees here. To be totally candid, weekends, you know, I have so many people who've been here for so long. In fact, Josh is celebrating his 25th year here next week. We need a little more depth, as they like to say, in sports on the weekends. So I'm hoping the CSR just hired is going to help with that. I don't feel like we're doing a bad job. I feel like some things fall in the cracks. Also hiring line service and maintenance technicians. We have ads running on Indeed, JS Firm. Also attending some technical job fairs in the southern part of the state later this month to help with all that. Next slide, please. I mentioned last time we're going through some branding, a refresh of branding. Some of those are like 2 years old concepts. I wouldn't get real worked up if you saw something you didn't like or whatever. It's just a lot of ideas right now. I tend to be, I'm not the shiny metal and glass kind of guy, whatever. I kind of tend to, gravitate towards sort of old time values, whatever you'd like to say. I mean, we are a bit of a um, minority in the FBO business these days in terms of we're a family owned and operate business that provides all the services that was you used to see with FBOs, 50 years ago. So that should be done fairly soon. That the car in the middle down there, that's probably going to stay. Some of these other things are just elements and colors. You can go to the next slide, please. Uh, I put on there in discussions with firms about finally developing a website I always wanted. I've spent tens of thousands of dollars and never really had a website that I wanted for various reasons. I actually just signed with the firm I talked to before this meeting and I paid for the website. It's going to take about 6 weeks. I'm really excited. I had actually stumbled across a website. It wasn't even aviation I really liked. Went down, looked at who it developed it, looked up their page. Turns out they have some aviation customers, and we went from there. So there's a lot going on in terms of the branding of the company, brand awareness, that sort of thing. And also, while we've received, some moisture, we're still pretty tuned into the fact that this could be an interesting fire season. I flew 2 days ago. It was the Winslow location back. I was happy to see water rain into Upper Lake Mary from some of the little tributaries coming out of the hills. I mean, if I could see it from there, it was a fair amount. But I think we all know, we're not out of the woods yet, so to speak. Next slide, please. And this kind of a recap. I was Debbie Downer at the last report. Actually, I wasn't. Grant and Josh were, but I prepared the report. February was looking pretty bleak, but we ended up finishing only about 3% down from the previous year, which was great. Maybe that went along with Brian talking about operations were up. Year to track, we're basically right where we need to be, and that was in part because of a strong January. March is ahead of a year ago right now. We'll see what happens. It's been pretty quiet today, and yesterday was a bit quiet. We've seen a big uptick in turbine traffic. I'm sure Brian can attest to that when he looks over the ramps and sees some jets appearing back on the ramp again, which is nice. Military's been pretty consistent. General aviation has increased, particularly on weekends. I kind of cringe when we have a snowstorm like on Thursday and Friday because I know what Saturday is going to be like. And Myrna actually covered who works during the week for us on the weekend. I've always told people weekends are way different, but when we have a big snowstorm, we get a lot of GA up here on the weekend wanting to come enjoy things. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just it's a lot of busy work and not necessarily a lot of revenue per se. But that's part of what comes with the territory. Fuel prices have remained, relatively flat. Not a lot of oscillations. Not a lot to talk about. And let's see another slide, please. And lastly, I don't know. It's some of it was elective, some of it wasn't. Quite a bit going on in terms of hangar door repairs, replacing instant heat, hot water heaters, things like that. It was a little bit of an expensive month in February in terms of maintenance, but it's not something, especially when you have a hangar door, it's stuck and you can't move it. That you can't pass on it. So, and I'm glad it was going on now before we get busy. So that's it. If anybody has any questions, let me know.
Thanks, Orville, and congratulations on that great award.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, thanks to staff, but thanks, I appreciate it. They were happy. I was actually out javelina hunting in the middle of nowhere, and occasionally I get cell phone service and get updates from Josh. So
Okay, before we go on, I noticed I missed the approval of last month's minutes. Do we have any comments or concerns about the last set of minutes? If not, can I hear a motion to approve?
Hey,
This
Commissioner
is
Tom,
Commissioner
this is
Hanovich.
Commissioner White. I'll make a motion to approve.
Second,
Commissioner Hanovich, I'll second.
those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the minutes from last meeting are approved. Okay, projects and grants updates.
Hi, Chair Waddell. This is Airport Director Brian Gall. I'll be giving the project and grant updates in lieu of Adam. As Claire mentioned, Adam is out at a conference this month. He's attending the FAA's, or it's a long title. It's the ACC AAAE Planning, Design, and Construction Symposium. So it's basically all the things we talk about in these updates. Is what Adam is learning about the latest and greatest of the FAA guidance, industry standards, materials standards, things like that. So hopefully he'll bring back some good information. We might, depending on what he learns, that one have him present on the conference at a future commission meeting. But for today, if it's okay, I'll handle the update for him. All right, so for airport projects, there's going to be a later informational item that's going to go into this in a little bit more detail, but one of our big projects is the Airport Express Visitor Center, which is a portion of the old cafe space. I'll be showing some renderings that show that in a little bit more detail, but just for an update on where that project's at, the construction contract has been signed and the purchase order is just about issued. And this is an exciting addition since last month's update, which is that construction is scheduled to start on March 24th. So a week from Friday, or a week from Monday, we'll be having construction of that space getting underway. Goal still is to have that construction complete in April. Materials availability is an ongoing challenge that Adam and the contractor are working on, specifically some of the aluminum and steel that goes into the storefront. There's been a little bit longer lead time, so they're actively trying to make sure they get to that as soon as possible. But we talked a little bit about employments and total operations and sort of the image that folks get of the city when they're traveling through the Flagstaff airport. And I think this visitor center is going to be a big step towards that, towards enhancing that customer experience and having those folks there. Right now, they're scheduled to be visitor center staff will be there 8 hours a day, 7 days a week. They'll provide guidance and information for people looking to visit the area, and also to sell some of those items from local producers that our visitors are interested in. So excited to get that project going. As I mentioned in the informational item, I'll have some more images of what that's going to look like. Next slide, please. So for the biggest project we currently have in the hopper, that is our snow removal equipment building. As an update, we talked about this a little bit last month, but as a reminder, we met with the FAA in February along with the design team to finalize the list of what items are considered eligible versus ineligible. Some of the challenge of this is that the FAA has two programs. One is called the AIP, the Airport Improvement Program. That's the grant program that provides airports with funding for construction of buildings like this or for things on the runway, things like that. And then the other half of that is they have this thing called these things called advisory circulars, and they would provide guidance, technical guidance on all sorts of activities, everything from the color of the paint on our fire trucks to what the contents of a snow removal equipment building should be. Now, in this particular case, part of the challenge is that the guidance that the FAA says we should have in a snow removal building doesn't necessarily always match what the AIP program says the FAA is willing to pay for in that building. So that's where we were going back and forth to try to figure out, which items are eligible for that federal funding, what items in the current design were not eligible for federal funding, and if so, are those items really necessary? So the building as designed is what's shown in that lower right-hand corner. It has 6 bay doors, which makes it a 12 bay building for storage, plus a maintenance and wash bay on the side and an administrative space on the other side. So we learned, the big thing was we learned that officially, we were told that the administrative space and any mechanical systems associated with it are considered ineligible for federal funding. That includes things like restrooms, the emergency backup generator for the building, some of the HVAC system. They were willing to pay for a portion of it, but not all of it. So that's what we learned. The building, as shown in that, the anticipated construction cost came out to about $33 million. So a very big number. It is a very large building. It's about 25,000 square feet. As a point of reference, that's about the size of the new Prescott Airport Terminal. So it's a large building that houses that fleet of snow removal equipment we have. And some of the a bulk of that cost, roughly a third of it, is the site work. So for various reasons, to be consistent with our master plan and the response times expected of our snow removal equipment, the only location on the airfield that really meets that need is between the ARF station and the air traffic control tower. But that site is kind of low, so you need a lot of earthwork and fill to raise it. It's pretty substantial retaining walls to raise that site. That site work alone was roughly $10 million of that project cost. So back to the funding source, though, the FAA grants we had available through a combination of that airport improvement program funding and through our bipartisan infrastructure law funding, somewhere between the neighborhood of 10 and 13 million when you back out the design costs and other costs. There are certain things we have to pay the FAA for. So even though they're FAA grants, we have to pay certain other entities within the FAA for some design services. So obviously there's a funding shortfall there, and that has been a discretionary funding ask we've requested from the FAA, but it's a big number. And right now we're not hearing a lot of confidence that they're going to be able to deliver that amount from us or for us. So after that meeting, airport staff and our design team, so our contractor and our architect, had a 4-hour meeting last week to discuss some ways to reduce the project cost. So that's everything from creating a smaller building footprint. The building as designed was to house all of our current and projected snow removal equipment. So we talked about what if we build a building to house what we currently have in a way that can allow for future expansion as more equipment comes online to reduce the initial cost. Having the smaller building footprint also reduces some of those site costs because we're not having to flatten such a big area if the building is smaller. We also talked about removing the administrative space and keeping some of those things co-located in the airport rescue and firefighting station, and removing those associated mechanical systems that were considered ineligible for funding. And then whatever options we could to revise building materials and finishes to try to reduce the cost as much as possible. I think the team came away pretty confident that they're going to get that number down quite a bit. So we kind of gave them some high-level instructions, and both the architect and the contracting team are off kind of sharpening their pencils and revising those designs. Once we have a concept, we're going to take that back to the FAA. We're going to present that to them and get their buy-in on it, and hopefully get the revised associated costs down into a more manageable request for that additional federal funding that we're going to be asking for. Next slide, please.
Hey, Brian, was there any concern that the funding may not be there when time comes due to all the action in Washington?
Yeah, there's a lot of uncertainty right now in the grant funding. I mentioned the 10 to 13 that we have available. About 4.5 or 5 of that we already have. It's already encumbered. So it's just kind of sitting there waiting for the project to be finalized so we can break ground on that first phase. The other portion of it has already been assigned to us, but actually getting the grants issued is another question. So we have heard their as far as we know, the AIP program and the bipartisan infrastructure law program are still intended to move forward. That AIP funding, in fact, was in the last FAA reauthorization that was passed last year. That being said, that FAA reauthorization, even though the bill passed that would allow that level of funding, the bill to allocate that funding would be in this year's budget. So since we're continuing to operate through a continuing resolution, there's a little bit of uncertainty with what the final total will be, whether that'll be whether that'll continue the amount from pre FY 2025 or if we'll come up to what was passed in the last FAA authorization. So there are a lot of questions out there, but all indications we've heard so far, those programs are still expected to be funded at pretty close to the expected levels. But it's until that budget authorization actually makes its way through Congress, we won't know for sure. Any other questions about the snow removal equipment building? The next project we have is Airfield Maintenance Phase 6. We're continuing the phasing numbering we did from our CARES projects. This project, as a reminder, is to correct the items that were identified in our last Part 139 airport certification inspection, mostly including runway restriping, some rubber removal on the runway, restriping some hold position markings on the taxiways that access the runway, plus some pavement repairs on the blast pads, as well as some ramp lighting and signage. We did get budget approval to go forward with that project. It's a pretty big number, over $400,000 in maintenance on that. That work is going to be done during nightly runway closures to minimize the impact to our customers and aircraft operations. Right now, we're expecting that construction work to begin in either May or June, as it's waiting on warm enough temperatures. So there is a minimum temperature for both the pavement marking application as well as some of the asphalt products that are going to be used. So roughly, we need some nighttime temperatures that are in the mid 40s and above. So right now, we're expecting to hit those in May or June, and the contractor will be on board and ready to go when we get there. Similarly, and this is a project we might not have mentioned previously, in 2023, the Arizona Department of Transportation completed a project up here as part of their Airport Pavement Management Systems program. That project provided a seal coat and restripe of both the runway and primary parallel taxiway, Taxiway Alpha, as well as all of our connectors. We did a warranty walkthrough 1 year after that project was completed, which would have been fall of last year, and we identified several issues with the pavement markings. It looks like maybe they had some issues with the pavement markings adhering to the new seal coat product. So we did identify those, and ADOT concurred that those were warranty issues. But again, since it was going into fall and that work has to be completed at nighttime, we're going to have to wait until May or June to get that work completed. Basically, they're going to come through and remove the remainders of the markings that were impacted and restripe them both on a portion of the runway as well as the parallel taxiway and connecting taxiways. So again, we'll probably do some of that work overnight for the parts that are on the runway. Otherwise, we can do some local closures to Taxiway Alpha. The airport does have its own barricades, so we can help out with that and close some small sections that we can route aircraft around and keep operations going even while they're completing those repairs. Any questions about those projects? Next slide, Missy. I think that was all we had for projects. Yeah, there are no other questions. That was it for the project and grant updates. Thank you.
Thanks, Brian. And it does look like Councilmember Matthews has joined the meeting. Councilmember Matthews, if you'd like to introduce yourself, and then the commissioners can introduce themselves as well.
Thank you, Claire. Hi, everyone. Sorry I'm late. I just got back from a trip to Washington, D.C., where we talked a lot about grants and made sure that our funding was going to come through. So I've been on council 2.5 years. I'm excited to join the airport commission as a liaison, I think, and hear all the great things that we're doing. And if everybody would like to introduce themselves, that would be great.
I'm Commissioner Tom Waddell. Been on the commission, I don't know, for a few years, and as the chairman for about 1.5 years. I'm a retired Air Force colonel. Started my Flagstaff residency as the commander of the Air Force ROTC unit at NAU in 1993. So glad to have you. I'm looking forward to getting updates from you at future meetings.
Nice to meet you, Tom.
This is Commissioner Steiner, David Steiner, and I've been on the commission. This is my 3rd year, I believe. Because I guess last year they needed to line more people up, and that didn't happen. Anyway, I've been on the commission for three years, and I'm a retired computer guy and a private pilot, and I'm glad to help out, and I'm hoping to hear more from you, Councilman Matthews. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and hi there. I'm Commissioner Schaus, Andrew Schaus. I'm a local business owner, a private pilot. Also work a corporate job here in town, but I've been on the commission since late 24, and yeah, happy to have you with us.
Hello, my name is Commissioner White. I think I follow you on LinkedIn, council member. I was in the National Guard for 8 years. I got out as a warrant officer in aviation on Black Hawk helicopters. I also have my private pilot's license, and my full-time job is over at the Prina factory managing the logistics.
Hi, this is Robbie Hanovich. I'm also a retired Air Force colonel, like Tom. Back to you as my professor of aerospace studies when I graduated from NAU back in the day. Flew heavy aircraft in the Air Force, currently work for Boeing, providing safety data analytics for airlines, also a private pilot. Nice to meet you.
Hi, good afternoon. This is Commissioner Carpenter. I'm an MBA student here in town, and I joined the commission about 6 months ago following my retirement after 10 years in the Navy Medical Corps.
Thank you, everyone. And it looks like Director Hansen has her hand up.
Hi all, Chair, Commissioners. I just wanted to share that, yes, Councilmember Matthews, you are the liaison for council to this commission, and each commission meeting, if you like, they'll be giving you an opportunity to update them on some other happenings that are going on at the council level. So for instance, if there were things talking about water services, something going on with public works, things like that, that you feel are something that this commission would like to hear about, you'll be given that time to report out and to offer those updates. If you don't always have an update, there's no pressure there, but we just wanted you to know that you will be given opportunity to share those other items at your leisure. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And wow, I had no idea the resumes of all the commissioners. Very impressive. So thank you very much. And I apologize for being just a little disheveled, if you will. I've been up since midnight, traveling home. So I'm just here more in spirit than anything else. But I appreciate all you introducing yourselves, and definitely will bring updates to this commission, as well as bring updates back to City Council and to the public on all the great things happening at the airport. I'm very excited about this commission. I was really anxious to get on it this year. The airport is such an important hub and factor for our beautiful town, for tourism and just transportation and everything. So I'm excited to be on this commission. I look forward to learning more and more about everything we're doing.
Thanks, Councilmember Matthews. We're happy to have you. And then besides staff, the two other people on the line are Orville Wiseman from Wiseman Aviation, who I know that you know, and then we have Mary Lou Miller, and Mary Lou manages American Piedmont on the commercial side of the airport. For our communication and business update, I'm going to keep it short today. Next slide. We have a new marketing campaign, Fly Easy, Fly Flag, Closer, Faster, Friendlier. These are some digital ads you see right now on your screen. They are going to start running tomorrow. Our digital ads will be targeted to anyone in the Flagstaff general area, all of northern Arizona. We do our area, it's called our catchment area. So the area where people travel to fly to Flagstaff as Northern Arizona. We're the only airport. So people that are 25 plus with a household income of 75,000 or more and an interest in travel. We've had some more ads that are put together and have come out today for print, bus, things like that. So I just wanted to give you a little glimpse of what our digital ads that hopefully you'll see running starting tomorrow and that you're all targeted. And then we're still working on a widget that we'll be able to book directly from our website. And that widget is actually being placed today and tomorrow. So unfortunately, we don't have it quite yet, but our next meeting, I'll be able to show you that. So all I had today was kind of our new marketing campaign, open to any questions or comments. And I hope you will all start seeing it around town.
Any questions for Claire? Okay, thanks. And new informational items, airport terminal concessions. Is that one back to you again, Brian?
It is. Thanks, Chair Waddell. I wanted to give you an update, a little bit more of a deep dive into one of the projects that Adam's been talking about. It's transitioning into an operation and amenity we're going to have in the airport terminal. So next slide there, Missy. So I wanted to start with a little bit of a history of the airport food and beverage concessions within the airport terminal. So folks that have flown with us in years past might recall that there was a cafe in the terminal on the pre-security side and some vendings in the passenger waiting area post-security up until about 2023. That cafe went through several different owners, several different iterations of the concept, and was actually responsible for the vending machines in the hold room. So they were a part of the same contract. Unfortunately, that contract was terminated in 2023. Some of the challenges we saw with that space were things we tried to address in our request for proposals for refilling those spaces. And that was challenges keeping the restaurant open during the period when the passengers were in the terminal, right? So our first flights of the day are usually sometime between 5:30 and 6:30 a.m. So the terminal opens to passengers usually about 4 a.m. And that can be a hard time to find staffing for those types of operations. In addition, as we've seen aircraft get larger, commercial aircraft specifically, we've started to see more gaps between flights. So now we might have a flight and then a couple hours in the terminal where it's pretty quiet, and then another couple of flights stacked together where it gets very busy again. And that was a very challenging thing that we heard from some of our both the existing cafe space that was there, plus some restaurateurs we talked to afterward. So we did ultimately issue 2 requests for proposals to try to get a new restaurant into that restaurant space. And unfortunately, no viable vendors submitted a proposal. The first one, we got 1 response. And when entering negotiations with them, they ended up withdrawing once they tried to start figuring out the staffing and the other nuts and bolts associated with the operation. And the second time we went out, we did not receive any proposals. So currently, food and beverage services at the airport are provided through vending machines. We have 3 vending machines, both pre and post security, with a number of different beverages and food options. But it doesn't have the fresh food, the fresh coffee, the other things like that we're hearing a demand for from our customers. So in 2024, we revised the RFP and went back out again for an unintended food and beverage sales option. We did receive 2 different proposals, and Highline Snack and Vending was selected as the highest scoring proposal by a internal selection panel made up of city staff. Next slide, please. So we entered a license agreement with Highline Snack and Vending that was approved by council last week. And that scope includes 2 micro markets. Micro market is a concept for some food and beverage sales that I'll show you a little bit more details on in a few moments. But 1 micro market pre-security in the rough location of the existing cafe space, and another one post-security in the inside the TSA hold room. We also are going to have at least 1 coffee kiosk on the pre-security side. And we're hopeful that we can add a second one on the post-security side in the not too distant future. Now, part of that contract is the airport receives 20% of the gross quarterly receipts, plus additional commission percentages if their annual sales volume exceeds $120,000 per year. Right now, the scheduled opening of this is before the end of April 2025, similar to the same track as that adjacent visitor center. Next slide, please. So I mentioned the renderings and kind of the details of how that place is going to operate. So in the pre-security micro market and coffee kiosk, you can see in the lower right there, the visitor center that we've been talking about on the construction side is going to be on the left, and that's going to be staffed by members from Discover Flagstaff. It's going to have both a big, large accordion door that opens up onto the concourse and a smaller double door that opens up onto the seating area that's between that micro market and the visitor center itself. And we're going to have a number of cafe tables in that kind of joint space between the visitor center and the micro market. The micro market on the wall, kind of behind what was once the bar in the cafe space, with the coffee kiosk just around the corner from that. The nice thing is about this being adjacent to the proposed visitor center is it does provide some staff that can help just kind of keep the area a little bit cleaner. They can also help if anybody has any questions with the way the micro market or the coffee kiosk operates, and just be kind of a face for the city to represent the city to those passengers that are utilizing that area. Next slide, please. So similarly in the hold room, so beyond the TSA checkpoint, the micro markets are going to go in the same place that we have the two of the three vending machines that are in the current hold room. So the vending machines will come out, the micro market space will go in. And the reason that we don't initially have a coffee kiosk going here is there is no plumbing on that side of the building. So right now there's no dedicated water service or plumbing or drain service over in that area. And in fact, the only area that has the plumbing and drainage is the kind of the lower left corner of that plan view, which is the restrooms that are in the hold room. And unfortunately, that's already a congested area with the TSA checkpoint emptying there and the queuing for the restrooms and then the queuing for the water bottle filling station. So we're hesitant to add additional items there that would cause that area to become more congested. So we are working with the micro market vendor, Highline Snack and Vending, to try to find some options for maybe some coffee machines that don't need as much of a plumbing support. And we're hopeful that we'll find that in the not too distant future. But for now, the initial plan is to get it opening with a micro market first. So at least there's some good fresh food and cold beverage options. Next slide, please. So here's a little bit more detail of what the concept will look like. So on the lower left there, you can see this is what the micro markets are. They're served by that screen in the middle. They're totally contactless or totally staffless. Essentially, the way they work is the customers will come up, they'll either swipe their credit card or swipe their phone or Apple Pay or whatever item they use on that screen, and that'll unlock the doors that are adjacent to that pay station. And once the doors are unlocked, the customers can open those, examine items, and then the system uses a form of tracking and some AI to record what items were actually picked up and kept versus ones that were picked up and put back. So you can actually handle an item, look at it, and if you decide you don't want it, put it back on the rack and it won't charge you for it. But anything that's in your hand when you close the door will ultimately be charged to the payment process on file. So the nice thing is right now we're planning on having two different machines in that pre-security area where the cafe was that are set up essentially exactly the same. So you can have two customers being served at any given time. So they'll have the same, roughly the same options in both machines. The other nice thing is those doors, those glass doors you see, can be configured either as a cooler or as just dry storage, right? Unconditioned storage. So they can be used for both room temperature items and items that need to be kept cool, as well as non-food and beverage items. So if there's travel supplies we want to include in those, that's an option. So things like luggage locks or phone chargers or headphones can all be included in a system like this and accommodated by it. Now the coffee kiosk is going to look something like that one on the lower right. Right now, they are negotiating with some local brands, so we're hoping it will be a local brand that is represented in that coffee kiosk, and the panels there will be done in a way that represents which brand is available in that coffee kiosk. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, there is going to be both the prepackaged foods similar to the vending machines, but also fresh foods, including sandwiches, wraps, salad, fruit, and that fresh coffee, which is probably our number one question we get from the traveling public is when the coffee is going to be available. So the nice thing about those machines is they do offer the ability to make some pretty gourmet coffee in them. They actually have whole beans in the machine that are ground to order. So they're ground right there in the machine. And then it has the ability to make lots of different kinds of those hot beverages. And not just coffee, also things like tea and hot chocolate will be available as well. Next slide, please. So for upcoming steps, as I mentioned, the council approved the license agreement last week. Levin Contracting, who is the same contractor that's working on the visitor center for us, is installing the infrastructure in the former cafe space. That includes the plumbing changes to accommodate the coffee machine, plus some electrical modifications to make sure we have the right power there for those large coolers. They actually started that work today. So it's pretty nice to see wheels turning to get that operation up and running. Highline's already received their license to operate the space from the Coconino County Health Department. So that part is good to go pending final inspection once the equipment's installed. The equipment is most of the equipment is already on at their location in Arizona. So it does require some assembly and some staff training to make sure it's all packaged up and ready to go in the space. And then of course the installation and stocking of the equipment will be the last step, with opening expected sometime in April. We're pretty confident it'll happen in the month of April. We're hoping it'll be toward the front end, but certainly within the next 6 weeks or so here, we're expecting to see that in operation, both in the hold room and in the former restaurant space. And with that, I'd take any questions or comments about the concessions in the terminal.
Lori, I see your hands up.
Thank you so much. And I apologize if you can hear my dogs. They're going crazy because mommy's been gone for 8 days. So Anyway, I just wanted to comment on the vending machines. You know, just getting back from traveling, I paid closer attention to the vending machines that are in these large airports that have restaurants and stuff, and more fresh salads and sandwiches vending machines are popping up even with the restaurants that they have. And more people are getting used to using those. So I think this is a great solution and a great addition to our airport. And I can't wait to see it set up. And I think it's going to be a very popular addition for sure.
Thanks for the comment, Councilmember Matthews. And I think that's a great point. That's something that I didn't mention earlier, but I think that you're correct. We are seeing these more and more across the country in airports of all different sizes. And I don't think this is necessarily mutually exclusive from a restaurant operation. So right now it is in the space of a restaurant operation, but we do have other areas in the terminal. So if we do get to a point where our traffic volume goes up and we have additional air service, I think it is something we could consider, is having both a restaurant operating and continuous service like this. So it is available 24/7. And for those people that are just looking for a quicker option. So yeah, thanks for the comment and thanks for noticing that at our partner airports.
And Brian, do me a favor and let Adam know that he'll be buying the commission lunch once the thing's up and operating, so we can see how it works from a personal standpoint.
Fair enough. I will let him know. If I'm sure if he had any objection, he would say so now.
Okay, before I ask for comments from the other commissioners, I'm not sure if you saw that there was an article in the well, it's not a paper, but at least the Daily Sun digital edition about the parking revenue. Do we have any? I know we had a discussion on it, and you guys were going to look at some other options. Are we going to see that maybe soon?
Yeah, thanks for the question, Chair Waddell, and appreciate you pointing out that article. We are working on that data that was requested in last month's meeting, and we're planning on bringing some additional information and discussion back to this group on that, hopefully next month.
Okay, sounds good. Is there anyone else who has any of the other commissioners' comments or questions? Okay, hearing none, can I have an emotion for adjournment?
This is Commissioner.
This is Commissioner White. I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Can I hear a second?
Commissioner
Motion is
Steiner,
seconded.
Commissioner Schaus, I'll second.
Okay. And we'll say Schaus second that. There was a bunch that hopped in. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, with that, Brian, we'll see you next Tuesday.
Have a great day, everybody.
Thanks for joining, everyone. We'll
Thanks,
see you next
Chairman.
month.
Have a good one, everyone.